All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Welcome, everyone. Any adjustments to the agenda?
I have none.
Seeing none, motion to accept the board meeting agenda is presented.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you. Recognition, we have none on the agenda, but I'd like to recognize the boys and girls basketball teams for their appearance in the playoffs. I took the day off last Thursday to go down and watch the girls play Madison. It was great to see the amount of people that showed up at that game down there. Our fans were clearly louder than theirs. Unfortunately, the outcome wasn't in our favor, but congratulations to both teams for getting as far as they did for such a small school that we have. Consideration of the minutes, regular board meeting, February 9th, 2016.
So moved.
Second.
Any changes, corrections? Seeing none, all those in favor? Consent agenda minutes. Nobody objects, I'll take them both at once. Finance committee meeting, February 9th, and personnel committee meeting, February 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Corrections, changes? Seeing none, all those in favor? We have no presentations this evening. Public participation, Jan Austin.
Yes, right here. As you know, I sent you all a letter yesterday that I'd like to read, and then I'll pass what I did. I'll persevere the rest. Okay, I guess I'll just stand over here so you can hear me. This is concerning Searsport Elementary School as well as Stockton Springs. And this is based on observations that I've noted at Searsport Elementary School. I'm a K-2 special education teacher at Searsport Elementary School. There are students working in the hallway, which is some Title I students. This is a heavy traffic area and is extremely noisy due to poor acoustics. The students are distracted when someone walks by, as well as confidentiality concerns. Technology room. Currently, this room houses, of course, our technology department and robotics. Robotics is an integral part of STEM. Robotics provides hands-on learning, engagement, problem solving, sequencing skills, language arts, through writing projects, journals, etc., to name a few benefits. If Head Start were to move to Searsport, the technology room would need to be used to accommodate that program. K-2 resource room currently houses students with autism and students with learning differences. There is no optimum learning for either one of these special needs groups. And what happens sometimes is a student who is either autistic or learning different becomes frustrated or agitated. The outburst impacts learning for all. 2 rooms would be more conducive to their unique learning styles for all those children. School-based day treatment program. Special ed law states no more than 11 students per program and a span of no more than 4 years. So you can have either a K-3 program or you can have a 1-4 program. Currently, there are 3 students who are in 3rd grade, I believe, going into 4th grade next year. If you have a student in kindergarten who should need this type of program, there will be some very difficult decisions to be made. The most optimal solution for both academic and behavioral expectations would be a K-2 3-5 program. Based on those following observations, and the concern for 40 plus more students being in SES, I would propose the following. Stockton Springs would be the pre-K, K-1-2 school. There are 10 classrooms at Stockton. Regular education would use 8 of those, and 2 would be left for Title I, special education, speech, and possibly a K-2 day treatment program. Or move your 3-4 classrooms at Searsport Elementary Schools downstairs to fill the K-1-2 vacancies. Close off the upstairs. Savings in heat, lights, and janitorial services would be seen. Second option, move only 5th grade to Searsport District Middle School in the fall of 2016. Move pre-K, K1 to Stockton. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Anyone else? She was the only one on the sheet, but anyone else who wishes to address the board may at this time? Seeing none, we'll move forward. Report from the superintendent?
I just have a couple of points. We were on vacation last week and we met on the 9th. Planning for the MEA for grades 3 through 8 is underway. Our IT coordinator, Bob Bradford, and grade level leaders will be planning and scheduling the administration of the testing, which needs to be completed by April 12th. So we'll be working on that. The SAT, we're still waiting information from the state. Also, I wanted to give you an update because we've talked about this before, and I've sent this email to both the middle school as well as high school staff, as well as the board. A bill was introduced by the Legislative's Education and Cultural Affairs Committee to require all students to be proficient in math, English, and 2 other areas of the student's choice. That is a change from what's currently on the books. They're talking all 8. So that is something that we'll pay attention to at Searsport District High School because we are at a 2018 date, which this could have a major impact on meeting that because we're in discussion now about a couple of the standards that would be required prior to this bill being submitted. There's no guarantee the bill will be approved, but it is something that we'll be paying attention to. And I'll keep you updated as we move along. And that was my report, because other things will be under old business and new business.
Committee reports? Buildings and grounds met this evening?
We did presentations from Siemens, very informative, covered a lot of information, and also talked about potential repairs for the coming summer. Certain stuff that I'm sure will be in the notes.
Personnel met, but we'll deal with that
Under new
later
business.
under new business.
Mm-hmm.
11.1, consideration of approval to close the Stockton Springs Elementary School. Where are you gonna start?
Well-
First I'd entertain a motion in a second so we can have a discussion, I guess. If you wanna do it the right way.
I'll make that motion. Consideration of approval to close the Stockton Springs Elementary School.
I'll second that.
Floor is open for discussion and debate.
One thing I think it's important to note is that it requires a supermajority, which is a 2/3 vote in the affirmative. And the weighted votes are Searsport Board have 873, and Stockton Springs are at 792. And that is according to the State Board of Education, which is signed by the commissioner. So the supermajority is 2,802. I think it's important to know that.
I have a question. I think we asked you to bring to us the recommendations from Larry with the amount of room that we have at Searsport. I think you've looked there too.
Yep, Larry and I have talked. Mr. Clement?
As far as the spatial for the rooms, we do have 2 rooms that would be used for Stockton, the pre-Ks to come over. And that would move our current space utilized by our tech integrator. So that would be on the table for us to find a spot for him as well. For the specific space within the building, anything else leading into that discussion?
All of it. I'll throw it out there, all of it.
Yeah.
All the above.
Functionality of the school, problems, advantages?
Well, the clear-cut advantage is that we'd have everyone under one roof, in which many view as an advantage. To have all our students part of the community of that school building. However, some of the challenges is starting right from the parking lot moving forward. We're gonna have extra people coming and going. So we're looking at parking, student drop-off and pickup, some of those challenges that will come across. We're looking at, once you move into the building, our administrative assistant, we have one person at the front desk, and that's gonna impact the workload, the amount of phone calls coming in, the amount of paperwork coming across. And of course, being the face of the franchise, as I call her, dealing with folks coming and going that pertain to, on top of our regular school, the Head Start program itself. So the traffic coming in that she would deal with on top of the paperwork. And then we would look at, to accommodate the federal guidelines that Head Start would provide for the recess, the playground area would need to be looked at and addressed as well. Head Start's gonna come and look at the actual space to do the measurements and the calculations there. And then we look at how that's gonna impact the flow of utilizing the lunch area for breakfast and lunch, how that's gonna impact our food services. That will impact, of course, our scheduling to utilize that space. And we would be limited. I know that Head Start utilizes 2 spaces per room. Then that'd be a question for Head Start on what they can and can't do for what they have for rest time, the space that they would need. So that would come back to them as well.
So they haven't come back to us with the possibility of 2 halftime programs versus 2 full-time programs, only needing 1 room versus 2 rooms. That was something that, in the past, is what was done. When my children and Dustin's children went to pre-K, it was housed in the Searsport Elementary. It was 2 halftime programs, morning and afternoon. So I wonder if there was something they thought that, whether they could do it or not, I don't know if they got back to us on that. If they have the ability by state law to run halftime programs still. My other question was, how many total students would we have in that school if we added 40 students? Because it brings to my mind that the decline in enrollment, we're actually not gonna put any more students in that school or have any more parents than we've ever had 10 years ago when the school was almost to capacity. So it kind of brings up my idea, it's gonna be a change for what we currently have for traffic flow and parents and functionality of school, but we've been there. You know, it's always easier to lose students and things are easier and there's more room and functionality is better and there's not so many cars in the parking lot. But we've been there once. And it didn't seem like a major disruption to the students that were learning at that building at that time. So, you know, those are questions that I have. What are the major disruptions? I guess you need to sell me, administration needs to sell me the car that they want me to buy. Because I've seen it to capacity and function with pre-K, and I've seen it with the low capacity we have now with no pre-K. And I haven't seen anything really dangerously dramatic within the functionality of the school. Parking lot is a concern. That's the architect's problem that drew the parking lot out for possibly 300 students and parents who transport their kids. So that's what I'm looking for here tonight, is administration to sell me the car they want me to buy based on what's best for every student and the taxpayers in RSU 20. That's what I'm looking for. Start selling.
Want a used car or a new car?
If it's a good used car, I'll buy one.
Well, the reason I'm asking, because one of the things is we're talking currently, and one concern that I have administratively is the future. Not necessarily with pre-K, but we have a couple bridges that we're facing right now with the withdrawal that has taken place, and that is an alternative ed program, because Searsport students have gone to BECO in the past, and there's a question of whether or not those students would be allowed to continue. And I will speak as a principal more so than a superintendent right now, and that is that we have kids that need an alternative education. And the best way to have an alternative education program is a separate building or separate program from the high school. So that's one thing that I look at down the road. The second thing that I look at is our adult ed program, which right now is being served by RSU 71, and that is something that does affect your EPS. So there would be some funding involved with that as well. So those are some questions that I have, including the tuition. So that's that part. As far as the enrollment, I only haven't been here for a while, and I did look at the enrollment numbers. The one school that seems to maintain a consistent number is the Searsport Elementary School. And the space that we would put students in would pretty much, close that building for any additional expansion of other classes. Are you looking for a recommendation yet, or you still just want
I
information?
want to just hear all the facts.
Okay,
So, can I just throw this out here?
yes.
So the enrollment of the school has remained the same, but does that take into calculation that we've moved all the Stockton Springs students into that school? So the actual amount of students that Searsport has and Stockton have now been, so the enrollment's really dropped, but we've moved them all into one school.
Right, and that then brought it back up to where the enrollment is.
And do we know what the enrollment of that building is?
I do not have it in front of me.
For the elementary school,
Yes.
we're at 222.
No, I mean, what the capacity is?
No, I don't have that stuff.
I mean,
I
that'd
do
be a
not
question
know.
I have. I believe it's in the 270s. That's my,
But is the space going to be, well, which we don't know that from Head Start yet, because it takes more space for the Head Start kids than it does K through 5, correct?
That's
They
one of the
need a
questions
bigger-
that we've asked the Head Start program or the pre-K program to get back to us, and we do not have that at this time.
And I think they did tell us that it requires more room.
We did ask about the half-day, and the, can't remember her name,
That's Francis.
yeah, stated that she does not believe that half-day is funded by the federal government. But I would have to confirm that. But we did ask that question.
And did she give you a time frame for the answers? Did she say when she would get back to us or
I
something?
can make a phone call.
Tony, being newbie on the board here, I'm under the understanding that the RSU 20 is responsible for K through 12, correct?
correct.
Okay, we're not responsible for pre-K, correct?
No mandate for pre-K, is there?
There's no mandate, but pre-K, when you look at your, again, EPS funding formula, it is part of your 279.
And I hear and I understand that, but I just, I want to make sure we're looking at everything. If my focus has got to be K through 12, and then if we can do other things, fine. But I want to make sure that we're making decisions on what's best for K through 12.
Can I just jump in here? I believe that you can see it, and I'm not in the classroom, but just as a parent, I could probably walk through a kindergarten class in a day and say, that kid went to pre-K, that kid went to pre-K, that kid's never seen a pre-K, that kid's seen a pre-K. It's that much, pre-K to me is what kindergarten used to be. And the kids that do not go to pre-K, I think are at a huge disadvantage, so it only benefits us as far as sped costs.
And
Stuff
once
like
again, I'm not saying we
Mhm.
eliminate it, I just wanna make sure that we're looking at all things. And, is, Broadreach, where are they located?
Broadreach is a private entity that provides the service
Okay,
as a contract to the school district.
okay.
Current system we use is a program that is funded, paid for by the federal and state governments, in which they do the work, we receive the state subsidy.
So we would pay for the pre-K, then the school district would have to pay for the
The
pre-K?
school only pays for what they call the in-kind, which is the use of the building, supplying the electricity, the heat, the phone, the business operations of the site. We do not pay for staff salaries and benefits.
Okay. Who pays that? I'm assuming that.
Head Start pays that, which is grants from the federal government.
Broadreach.
No, Broadreach is a different entity.
Okay. well-
Before, we had a contract with Broadreach, which we paid them a set dollar amount to take care of their salaries and benefits.
But we're not responsible for pre-K, so why would we?
Why did we?
I'm trying to.
Mhm. Why do we have pre-K?
Well, I'm coming from a different
Right.
background.
I think we do pre-K solely on the educational advantage.
Okay.
It's also, it's a moneymaker. Okay, even with Broadreach, paying Broadreach $180,000, with state subsidy of 40 kids, we still made a little bit of money put into our budget to use for K through 12.
What's the dollar amount? Because obviously that's a factor.
Well, what pre-K is 63,
The subsidy?
the subsidy this year for pre-K?
It is $6,898 per student.
Or 200.
$225,357.66.
If we're finding space is an issue, and then I just want to make sure that we're looking at all things.
Mhm.
And if we're gonna get approximately $250,000, I think I heard that per year, that's money that we need to look at, because that's gonna help us to keep costs low.
Correct.
Thank you.
If we close the Stockton School, we have to pay the debt service off anyway. Is that correct?
Yes,
So we'll only have the operation of the building. What dollar figure will that come to?
budget-wise, it's $203,000 is what we put into the budget to run the Stockton Springs Schools and the
Okay.
pre-K program.
And what
The
was,
debt service is $101,000.
so we're talking a little $100,000. And that's what we put in for this year, right?
That's what we have for the current year, 2015-16,
Yeah.
and that's what, 101,000, we have to pay it in 2016-17, or we have to pay, if you pay it off, it's 145 or something like that.
So we're saving, excluding the debt service, we're saving about $100,000. Maybe a little less.
Closing the school or keeping it open.
Closing, so leasing.
You'd be saving $100,000, but you still have to pay the debts.
Fine.
You still have to pay the debt service.
Still have to pay debt service.
The effect on the proposed budget for 2016-17 would only be about 50,000.
To keep it
Because,
open.
to close it. If you closed it and paid off the debt, we'd only be saving 50,000 rather than keep it open.
Because of the debt service payment would be higher than
Correct.
normal year.
And we may still incur, because if we still have the building, we still have to heat it and electricity and phone line
And we also would have expenses of, we'd have to redo playground area, And one of the things that we are looking at is not only looking at the pre-K playground area, but we've got some concerns with our current playground area. So there's some cost too.
So that being said, going back to what some of these playground improvement requirements are, just to at least service potential of a Head Start pre-K situation, do we have any indication of what their requirements are at base level? Fenced in?
Fenced
Equipment is
in.
not age appropriate? Do we have any indication of that whatsoever?
Fenced in, the height requirements of your swings and things like that. And the big, probably the big one is the cushioning, the mulch that you have to have in.
So that's the part that concerns me, because not knowing that in advance of making a vote to close it assumes that whatever those might be is going to be an inherent cost and it's
Oh.
a huge unknown.
Most,
Mhm.
yeah. If Junior was still there, but I think he left. I know when we looked at the mulch for the, over here at Stockton Springs, if the mulch we have in there, we can get by with, but we're gonna have to add some this spring. It's not cheap. I don't know the exact cost, but I know it's in the
It's like
$30,000.
It's $28 to $30 a yard typically.
Yeah. So I think some of the rough math that I'm hearing here indicates that we might break even. We might end up actually having some cost in the first couple of years between debt service, expenses additionally incurred. But long-term, can anybody tell me what the long-term year-over-year savings projected may be as a result of a budget that doesn't include Stockton Springs Elementary School or a debt service payment after next year? The absence of that?
Well, if you get rid of your debt service of your payment of $140,000 and your $50,000 savings that's projected is about $203,000 a year. Just in operational costs, not counting,
So just to clarify, that's the long-term gain there, is 200,000+.
any future maintenance or.
But,
But once you take the debt service out,
you break it even.
you've got about 100,000 in order to run that school.
But that's if you don't use it for anything else, correct? But you're talking, the adult ed might have to come back, and you're talking about an alternative school. Do you have a place where the alternative school?
Currently?
Yes.
No, we do not, but that's why I would need to look at where that's headed as far as,
Because right now,
Where we
we
could
had
send our kids.
20-something kids in the Belfast alternative school, I believe, this year, didn't we?
no, our numbers are down considerably over there.
Oh, they are
Last year, we had 13.
13?
This year, we're down to 5. The key is that this year, because of the agreement that was in the withdrawal agreement, we could continue to send students over to RSU 71 to a superintendent's agreement. That is for 1 year only. After that, we could be charged a tuition fee, which goes up based on the state tuition rate, which could be anywhere from, at the high school level, usually it's anywhere between 10 to 13,000. And they are going to decrease the numbers enrollment-wise at VCO.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, you're feeling like we may find ourselves in a situation where we absolutely need to create a decope in order to serve the needs.
Again, speaking from the principal's viewpoint, the answer is yes. I think that's an important aspect of high school in today's society.
With that being said, though, and I know what you're thinking and possibly what you're thinking, I question the fact of having alternative education in the same building with pre-K students.
I haven't got that far yet. Now I'm gonna sell the accessories to your car.
Because I haven't bought the car just on that line.
I know you haven't. One of the things is that, we would know better in a year. And that being is what's gonna happen to the alternative ed for our students from Searsport. If we were to develop an alternative ed program at the Stockton Springs elementary school, there's no way I would recommend having pre-K or K1 or K2 there as well. Simply because, you know, it's a different style of student, obviously. I would approach other districts to see if they wanted to develop a regional alternative program. The other is that we could have space there with high school kids if the magnet school came in. So that's one thing. The other is, I'm thinking of the adult ed aspect of that. The accessories would be, if with a year, we have a large 5th grade class moving out this year. Our 4th grade would move out, and our numbers would be basically in your high 20s to 30 range, which would lower the student population over the next year to 2 years, which would take away some of that crowded feeling that is being a concern at the elementary school. So I'm thinking forward, not current. That's why I asked if you want to use or new.
So, sir, can I jump on one of your accessories?
You certainly can.
With our high school at only 45% capacity, I think that would serve a better place for an adult ed, for staff functionability. What kind of upgrades would have to be done up here to accommodate much larger students than, obviously this building up here is developed for K through 5 on the adult ed piece. The alternative program, I was sitting here thinking to myself, well, they won't take our kids for anything but subsidy. Well, what about all the kids that don't get accepted into an alternative school in other communities? For the regional, we kind of went in that direction. So I guess it comes down to the simple fact is, you give up the use of a building for $100,000 savings, to put it in one current year budget, or do we look into the future, as Mr. Downing's just said, and see what brings forth in the future? We've been asking as a board for the last couple of years to look at possibly closing Stockton to save that sum of money. So I guess that's what we need to decide. If it's worth giving the building up for $100,000 savings this year and possibly a couple $100,000 in the future per year, or try to utilize the space.
Savings this year would just be, if you close, it would be just the.
50 because of the debt service payment. Thoughts?
I might have misheard something, but the magnet school was brought up, and I know we don't make decisions based on a magnet school because we don't know for sure if it's coming. They're planning, moving in that direction. And we'll know, you know, in another year or two, I guess, whether there's gonna be a magnet school in Searsport. Did I hear, you said that the Stockton Springs School could be used as part of the magnet school?
I did say that, but what you look at first is the Searsport, because the way the law is written. But depending on, again, not knowing what's gonna happen, at least you would have an option if you needed additional space.
Okay, so the magnet school could utilize the RSU 20 buildings.
It could if they approached it the right way. They meaning the Board of Trustees of the magnet school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've heard differently, and rather vehemently, it's a magnet school that's in Searsport and everything has to be in Searsport. And now I'm hearing that, no, it's the RSU buildings they could be using. But I don't want to get too far into that because I want to make decisions on what we have now and what we have to deal with now. And the magnet school isn't one of the things that we have to deal with. We have to be looking down the road. But I just need a definitive answer because I've heard it both ways, that all magnet school functions have to be in Searsport, or maintenance school functions have to be in RSU 20 buildings.
The law was written for Searsport schools, but what I'm saying is down the road, if they needed additional space, RSU 20 would have it if they still had the Stockton Springs School.
Okay.
And
And
my last sales pitch to you is, you know, I know I'm projecting out down the future, but I'm also looking at the money, the fiscal part of it. But if we did need to expand and we didn't have that building where right now we have it and we almost have it paid off, you know, are we giving up something that we may need down the road?
Well, that's what I
That's-
said way in the, you know,
Right.
it's no different than the town of Searsport wanting us to give them the central office for the years we was in the RSU 20, when I knew in the back of my mind that we're gonna be in that central office someday, utilizing it as a central office again. So I fought that from the get-go. So, yeah, I mean, that's my question, and that's what I need to hear, is forward-thinking, savings. You know, if we receive $225,000 in state subsidy for the pre-K program this year on a school that cost us $203,000 to operate, clearly the school didn't cost us any money to keep it open. We just didn't reap the full benefits of it being in a building that wasn't costing us anymore.
I'd just like to say, what you say, I don't totally agree with. You have the 225,000 that you get
Correct.
to run this, but you'd still get it if this operation went to Sears.
And that's what I'm saying, you don't reap the full benefits
That's
of the
right.
state subsidy because you're using a building to operate it versus putting in a building that you're already operating, no additional cost, yes. I agree.
can the Waters get any money?
They will tonight and tomorrow with all the rest.
So, sorry, go ahead.
What does it mean to close Stockton Springs? Does this mean you cannot reopen it? Is the building somehow decommissioned? And what does it mean? Because does it mean that it wouldn't be available, the building wouldn't be available down the line to the magnet school if it were needed, or to an alternative education program if it were needed? What does it mean to close the school?
Okay, if a school board and the towns that must vote to close a school, you can keep the school and use it, as long as you use it for educational purposes. And I'll use the old Robertson School in Belfast. MSAD 34 closed that school, but Sweetster leases that space from RSU 71 on a yearly basis. Sweetster is an educational institution, so the school district is allowed to keep that building, lease out the space, use it in their budget because it's for education. If we chose to close Stockton School, we have a year to either find somebody to lease it for educational purposes, and if we don't, we must either return it back to the town, sell it to the town, or put it on the market for sale. We cannot hold on to the building for more than a year without using it for an educational purpose.
So I guess some of the concerns I have is that I still feel like there's some unanswered questions here that I think would be critical to make a decision definitively as it relates to its effect on next year's budget. And it feels hasty to make a decision to do that without having answers to those questions here tonight. And I guess maybe my expectations were such that I shouldn't have expected to have those answers tonight, but I think in the back of my mind I kind of did. That being said, if we don't have that, I don't feel comfortable making that decision. However, all the ideas that have been tossed out here anecdotally around potential future uses for the building, I will say those are all conversations that I feel like we've had before, anecdotally. But it feels as though somebody's got to take the lead on taking the initiative and bringing to fruition some of those potential ideas as a realistic, viable option for repurposing the school if we're not going to use it for anything specific related to K through 5. Yeah. it's uncomfortable to be put in a situation to feel like we have to make a decision with such heavy weight without having those answers. And so, for that reason, as I said, I feel comfortable voting to close it without knowing that definitively, especially knowing that we're in a situation where we're more than breaking even on the space right now, and it is options. But I would acknowledge that it is also very difficult to walk away from what you know, and that we do have an answer to, is a ongoing savings of $200,000 plus year over year, 2-3 years from now. From what I'm being told, that's most certainly a savings that we can bank on. That's an answer we do have tonight. That's a difficult thing to not acknowledge and make a decision on tonight.
Can I clarify that, though? Are you talking about the 6,800 and whatever dollars times the 40 kids, the 200,000?
No, I'm talking about what's been told as the aggregate savings 3 years from now, year over year, as overall operating expense that we no longer have as a result of maintaining that building and the program that's in it.
But you're not really saving that because it's only, the cost is what? Our cost is what, 50,000 to operate that?
No, it's 100 and
It's 100
2,000.
102.
Yeah, but is that counting is that just the utilities and
That's just the operational cost of the building. Taking the debt service out of
the debt
the
service?
budget, that's what you're left with.
Current budget's 203, debt service was 101.
So it cost you 102,000 to operate the building, not including debt service.
Operate the building with students in there.
With students in there,
Yeah,
correct.
pre-K.
Yes,
Right.
Yeah, because you have to have the janitorial, the food service, all that.
Right.
stuff.
You take the pre-K out of there, then you're talking, and I arbitrarily cut it in half. I don't know if that's an
Well, I
accurate
kept
figure or
saying
not.
50, okay, I kept saying
Okay.
50,
So same point,
Yeah.
amend the number.
okay?
Right, next year would be 50, and next year after that would be 100.
Mhm.
Ongoing savings would be
Right.
100.
Right,
Not
So-
factoring-
not the
factoring-
200.
So I'll ask, recommendation from the superintendent and recommendation from the principal in the current Searsport Elementary.
My recommendation is that we continue to keep the Stockton Springs Elementary School housing our pre-K program and look into the option to get the exact cost and bring it back to the board for next year. Because I'd like to approach about a regional alternative ed program and then move this pre-K to Searsport Elementary School in 2017-18.
So
If you want my recommendation, that's what I would do.
I want to go back to one thing you said, when the 4th and 5th grade classes finally move into the middle school, it's gonna, the classroom size is gonna be much smaller, so there may be only grade levels of 1,
No,
no?
I didn't
There'll
say
still be
that.
2, because if
Maybe
there's still
one.
2 grades at each level, then you're still using the same space.
you're using the same space, but the total number of bodies in that building, including the lunchroom and things of that nature, would decrease. It would also give us, I know anyways, right in front, it would also give us some opportunity to look what we would do with the robotics. I tend to be a typical Maine conservative and move slow. And, you know, I don't wanna shoehorn something when we need to look at other options. That's why, that would be my recommendation.
If I may, this year's current 5th grade, I believe, is 42 students. And that would be moving over to the 6th grade. And next year's 4th grade, or the 4th grade is 42 students. And then we jump down to 31 and 28. You're gonna be losing 41 and 36 in a 2-year period from the high school, and 38 and 31 from the
I agree with your point, Bill, but I don't think this year's 4th grade is 22 students. I think it's a much higher number than that. In fact, I think
No,
it's
no,
just
42.
42.
You said 42.
Okay, all right, thank
Yeah,
you.
4th and 5th grade are both 40.
Right, yeah.
I wasn't clear on that, I apologize.
Larry?
I agree, Chris and I talked about this, and one of,
So you guys are the two-car salesmen,
Salesman,
finance manager.
finance manager, in and out.
one of the biggest fears is the unknown. And, you know, when we look at trying to provide the best service for our kids, we don't know what additions are gonna come in. You know, we've had kids that have moved in this year without, you know, we didn't know any prior knowledge, and they're kids that need a lot of extra services. So one of my big personal fears is that we're gonna be at full capacity, and then we're gonna have extra students come in, which is, we're all hoping that we increase the enrollment and the population in this area. But if we get overwhelmed down the road, and that's, the projections are so, they're crucial, and they're, you know, I certainly think takes a while to come up with that realistic number. But that unknown factor, being able to know that we can provide the services, the best services possible for each kid. So I think taking that extra year is certainly gonna benefit the future.
So what will we gain in another year for the unknown? If I sit here next February and it's like, well, we don't know how many kids are gonna move in September. We don't know the unknown. I know this administration, this is the first time this has come up. It's come up to the administrations before. And
Well, one would know the playground, all the stuff at the playground. I'll be the first to tell you, you know, I'm basically a secondary individual when it comes to playgrounds, so I know, look into that. Second thing is, I know we've talked about building and grounds, is we do have an issue with some of the traffic out in front of the school. We also have an issue with the playground for our older elementary kids, fencing and some of the other stuff that needs to be. So give us an opportunity, Larry and I, to plan that out and get, so in other words, we'd have it set up so when we do move the pre-K kids in, would have everything, would have the house taken care of instead of trying to repair it while they're moving in. Because we just don't, Larry and I have talked, I'd say probably in the last month, every Monday for at least an hour and a half of what are some of the things, and then we sit there and we think of something else that we hadn't thought of. And that's what we're going, you know, going through.
What is your projection when this year, grace period for kids going to other schools? Do you have any idea how many kids that you think will come back into the district?
I do not. I mean, I can't predict that because I was looking at the figures of who went this year, and the numbers are not necessarily to RSU 71, but they're up to RSU 22.
So, are you talking maybe 50 kids?
Coming back?
Yes.
I don't know if I brought the numbers or I left them in another pile.
For some reason.
We had 19 at the middle school. 19 moved left, 10 came in, so a difference of 9. And at the high school level, there was a difference of 11, of numbers that went out and numbers that came in. And it's, again, there's movements, I mean, some have moved in from Greenville, some have moved out as far as down to Lewiston. It's just, the population is transit in quite a few cases.
I'd like to comment on what Mr. Clement said, that we want to provide the best education possible, and I think that's what we're all about, that, providing the best education possible. We also have to look at what the cost is. And I will tell you at this point in time that Stockton is paying, and I hope it's accurate, based on the number of students that we have attending RSU 20, and based on our payments of approximately $2.5 million. And once again, if I have incorrect information, I apologize, but I don't know the number of students. I had it at one point in time, but the cost of the Stockton Springs is $18,000 a student, if my numbers are accurate. And I'm telling you at this point in time that Stockton cannot afford to be paying $18,000 for each of their students that attends RSU 20. We have to look at those numbers long and hard. So we weigh giving the best possible education, and when we look at the 6 statements, and I left that pile of paper at home, one of the things that it states there, and it's number 6, it's as long as the towns can afford the cost, basically is what it's saying. And I think we have a responsibility to keep that in mind. And come to a selectmen meeting and find out, how many people are 2 years in arrear of their taxes, and how many people are in the possibility of losing their homes because they can't afford to pay the taxes. So, and you talk, when I sit here, I represent 38 years in education. My wife is meager, she only has 25, but she took off several years to raise the kids. In the Cosmano family, we probably over 100 years that we represent in education. I have 2 brothers that were also teachers. Education is the most important thing, but we also have to look at cost. And I think our responsibility as board members is to look to provide the best that we can, but we have to be aware of cost. And that has to be factored into the decision.
What is Stockton's monthly payment, do you remember?
For their assessments,
226,
226?
226,000.
2.7 million.
25.
You have 167 students, which comes up to $16,000 per student.
Well, and as I said, I'm not sure where I am on that, because I don't have that paper in front of me. But I will gladly recheck figures. Stockton can't afford 16,000.
Move to vote?
Dustin's moved the question. All those in favor of moving the question? Or actually, I need a second first.
Second.
All those in favor of moving the question? Debate is ceased. All those in favor of closing Stockton Springs Elementary School? Opposed? Cars still in the parking lot.
One more year.
For another year. Moving on to new business, consideration approval of the main PERS settlement.
Good news. And that is that an settlement agreement has been written based on the mediation that Tony and I attended. And the final figure for, I'll read it right from the settlement. RSU 20 shall retain the remainder of the IUUAL deposit in the amount of $462,707.08 plus all interest accrued to date. And then they would need to, from that, 21,000 would go to Frankfurt. So a net gain of $441,707.08,
Plus interest.
plus interest.
Are lawyers' fees taken out of that?
No.
Not yet, not yet, Bill. It'll be more than Frankfurt.
I will say, we only had to pay 1/4 of the mediation fee, because there was 3 of them and 1 of us. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Questions, discussion? Go ahead.
Do you know how much the interest is?
It's been running about $500 a month,
For how long?
7 months.
All those in favor of the agreement? Opposed? Thank you. Consideration of softball coaches,
Should be softball coach.
softball coach.
We have one for the middle school. We do not have a softball coach candidate yet for the high school. Sharon Chase.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
As always, there's no discussion with personnel. All those in favor? Thank you. Oh, the fun part, preparation and preview of the 2016-17 budget.
Let's see this thing.
Won't see it yet. Deanna and I have been working, Deanna probably a lot more than I have, on the budget. We're looking at some very raw numbers. What we did was we took the salaries and benefits and costs of that nature and looked at contracts and adjusted those, and we moved over the 16 amounts that we currently have, and then we're gonna go through and look at the cost centers one by one, so that on March 8th, when we bring you the budget, ready for you to examine, we will have a budget which, I guess, what's the best way of saying it, Deanna, has been scrutinized to this point, but will be scrutinized even more.
So you'll have the first draft.
And we will have a first draft.
And I think it was discussed at the finance committee meeting that we might have a finance committee meeting prior to the board meeting and not the same day, so that we can take enough time
To look at
really
it.
go over it before we present it to the public.
Yeah.
First draft.
The other highlights, the points that, we want to make you aware of is, one is that the preliminary ED 279 showed a reduction for RSU 20 of $356,127.64. There are points that need to be discussed both statewide as well as for RSU 20. I have contacted the DOE, the finance part, and asked if I can have some time to ask specific questions. The answer I got back was yes, but I'll have to get back to you as far as time and date. They're very busy down there. The other is that, we are still awaiting the audit to be completed, which will give us a figure of some of the balance. We also now have an agreement with the IUUAL that we'll take into consideration, and we also have the money last year that when the state changed the mill rate, districts received additional money. That money has been set aside for help with the assessments to the taxpayers. So, we're looking at a lot of different things, and we came up with the raw numbers today. Deanna worked on them last week, this weekend, last night, this morning.
Last month.
Yeah, we've been working on it for a while, and we're gonna have that ready for you on March 8th. our goal, I'll tell you what our goal is, and that is that the assessments do not increase to either town, and if we could even lower them, we would do that. That's what we're looking at.
That's the car I want to buy. So, quick question,
Yep.
rumor on the street about curtailment as we get one every May from the state. Has there been any word within the state about a curtailment, not paying the full amount of the last two payments?
I've not heard
No, not
anything,
heard anything.
No.
but my colleagues knows.
And Main School Management would be the first to let the superintendents know. We haven't heard anything of that yet.
In fact, Maine is reporting record revenues,
Yeah, that doesn't matter. It's always the school that
really.
takes it.
But we also, when talking about the budget, is that by moving over to 15, 16, there's savings with the fuel oil, there's savings, there's some savings, but in order to start somewhere, you have to have the beginning point, and that's what we've done with the raw data.
I will tell you, initial reports from the tech center is that we will have some sort of increase, our assessment from the tech center. Anywhere from 3 to 5%. Because now they're talking about adding in to the budget based on one board member's proposal. So the budget may grow with the tech center.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm obviously chomping at the bit to dive into that first draft and specifically the BG&T discussions that we've had, discussion we had prior to this one, and how that relates to an impact on the overall number. Obviously could change those things, so I really want to be present for that prelim meeting as well.
That'll be either the Tuesday the 8th or Monday the 7th.
Okay.
And you're gonna work with the towns too, I believe?
Yes, I think it would behoove us to sit down with the selectmen of both Searsport and Stockton Springs and have a meeting with them as well.
Anyone else? Moving on. 12.4 is an executive session, labor contract negotiations pursuant to 1 MRSA 4056D, in which everybody must leave the room. We will not be taking any action. There's no more items on the agenda. So unless you want to stay and come back and listen to us adjourn, have a good evening.